Today I'm bringing you a video that was sponsored by my boy Chronicler. Chronicler is always on my streams and is always showing me love through mad big donations. He's a big fan of Jiraiya and has been wanting to see a power scale done right for him for a very long time. And even though I haven't talked about the Sannin yet on my channel, Jiraiya is actually one of my favorite characters in general. So today I will be breaking down the true strength, speed, and abilities of the legendary Toad Sage Jiraiya. In his first showing ever, Jiraiya is found researching at the hot springs where Ebisu attempts to confront him in the name of respect. Jiraiya uses one of his Toad summons Gamma to knock out Ebisu immediately, which is not all that impressive because Ebisu is considered to be a special Jonin known for his teaching ability. For those that don't know, special Jonin are not at all impressive in combat, but rather have special talents that allow them to be considered for higher ranking. Ibiki is another special Jonin introduced during the Chunin exams, and was made a Jonin because of how good he was at torturing people. Ebisu was a special Jonin that attempted to fight a path of pain, and although got bodied, put up a pretty good effort. How strong Ebisu is, I'm not actually for sure, but I just find it hilarious how easily Jiraiya slapped him. In the Rasengan's first ever showing, Jiraiya was able to obliterate this random dude inside of the gambling den where he and Naruto were seeking out Tsunade. The Rasengan is a legendary technique created by the 4th Hokage, and is said in the databook to be the equivalent of a small meteor. This is all pretty minor scaling for Jiraiya though, as he is one of the Prodigal 3 and a legendary Sannin, which are all regarded in Part 1 as being threats to each other. Ebisu directly states it takes a Sannin to beat another member of the Prodigal 3, and then says that the only ones capable of defeating Orochimaru is Jiraiya. The same idea is reciprocated in the databook, as it directly states that the 3 Sannin are all equal to each other. This is impressive for multiple reasons, as this puts Jiraiya at the same caliber as both Orochimaru and Tsunade. Tsunade is so strong, Jiraiya directly states that nobody can stand shoulder to shoulder with her in combat or medical ninjutsu. Soon after, however, Jiraiya actually threatens Tsunade that should she accept Orochimaru's offer to bring Dawn and her brother back to life and become a threat to Konoha, Jiraiya will personally kill her. So, this yet again reinforces the idea that all the Sannin are capable of fighting and even killing each other. The fact that Jiraiya is equal to Orochimaru, a shinobi so strong that just his mere presence fear hacks Kakashi and defeated him, is an incredibly impressive feat. Kakashi himself is stated in the first databook to actually be the strongest shinobi in Konoha. This statement is contentious, as Hiruzen is also a shinobi in the village, but Orochimaru is also even stated in the databook to have equally matched Hiruzen during their battle on the rooftop. Matched him so evenly that the battle seemed endless. Hiruzen was stated by Kabuto to be the most powerful of the 5 Kage, and was impressed that Orochimaru managed to kill him, and Hiruzen himself was stated to be the strongest Hokage at one point as well, which of course is referring to his prime, but Hiruzen makes a joke to Iruka that he actually still is the strongest. After Hiruzen died during the Konoha Crush arc, the village elders came together as they needed to make a quick decision on who would take the title of Hokage. The village elders then tell Jiraiya that he has been selected for the title, which is evidence that Jiraiya is considered to be one of the strongest shinobi in Konoha, if not the strongest. Kakashi is a close second and later becomes Hokage candidate himself, but this is after unlocking the Mangekyo Sharingan and becoming more powerful. Jiraiya declines the offer to become Hokage and instead offers up Tsunade to the village elders as a candidate to which the elders agree is an appropriate replacement due to the fact she is also a Sannin and equal to Jiraiya. Hiruzen also directly stated that Orochimaru was a Hokage candidate at one point as well, but could not be chosen only because of his twisted mind rather than lack of physical ability. So what this means is that all 3 Sannin were Hokage candidates, which again supports that they're all relative and all potentially the strongest in the village. He also referred to him as a powerful genius that only appears once every few decades. He also states that Orochimaru could take down small nations by himself, which, considering the statements I've shown previously, makes Jiraiya look that impressive as well. Following the assassination of Hiruzen, Jiraiya begins his search for Tsunade. Unbeknownst to him, however, Orochimaru was also seeking out Tsunade to heal the arms that Hiruzen had sealed away with the Reaper Death. This would then cause the event in chapter known as the 3-way deadlock. What's interesting about this fight is that every combatant there was weakened or nerfed in some way. Tsunade had actually drugged Jiraiya with a scentless and tasteless medicine that had made him so weakened he could only summon Gamakichi instead of Gamabunta. Tsunade during her fight with Kabuto was forcefully exposed to Kabuto's blood, which she had an extreme phobia of. This paralyzed Tsunade with fear and made her helpless for the most part against Orochimaru as well. Orochimaru, of course, literally did not have arms and could not cast jutsu, so his nerf is obvious as well. During this encounter, Orochimaru summoned a couple giant snakes. These same snakes were shown earlier where they were able to one-shot a castle. When Jiraiya finds this castle, he mistakes the destruction as Tsunade's, implying Tsunade could destroy that castle as well. Orochimaru during the Konoha Crush arc also summoned multiple giant snakes that were terrorizing Konoha, which was only stopped when Jiraiya summoned his own massive toad to pin them down. During the three-way deadlock, Jiraiya once again stopped these snakes by utilizing his Dark Swamp Jutsu, which completely ensnared the summoned snakes. Jiraiya then says that the medicine was still affecting him, and this swamp was puny and didn't even sink the snakes completely, implying it could have if he used it at full power. After this, Jiraiya and Orochimaru get into a scuffle where Jiraiya uses his Lion Mane Jutsu to pierce Orochimaru's foot. The databook also specifically takes note of the Lion Mane's ability to pierce Orochimaru. This is impressive because not even a head-on punch from Tsunade or Four Tails Naruto was able to pierce Orochimaru like this. After this, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru all pull out their strongest summons. Tsunade summons Katsuyu, Jiraiya summons Gamabunta, and Orochimaru summons Manda. When Manda is summoned, he immediately threatens to eat Orochimaru, but Kabuto, who's extremely fearful of Manda, attempts to calm him down. Kabuto was also worried about Manda finding out that Orochimaru was not able to use his jutsu, and claims that summoning him at all was extremely risky. This implies that Manda is a legitimate threat to No Arms Orochimaru. Gamabunta shows no signs of fear and is immediately ready to take Manda down, stating he would turn Manda into a snakeskin wallet. Manda seemingly gets the upper hand over Gamabunta, knocking his weapon away and strangling Katsuyu, but Katsuyu and Gamabunta both manage to evade Manda's attacks. In the databook, Katsuyu, Manda, and Gamabunta are all directly stated to be equal in strength, which again displays relativity amongst the Sannin. It is actually Tsunade who defeats Manda by using her regeneration seal and knocking Gamabunta's sword through Manda's mouth, pinning him. Before Manda is desummoned, he threatens Orochimaru once again. Soon after this, Naruto defeats Kabuto with a base Rasengan. This is impressive because Jiraiya directly states that Kabuto is around Kakashi's caliber as a shinobi, and seeing as Jiraiya also has the Rasengan, this means he would have been able to do that as well. Seeing as Orochimaru was now heavily outnumbered and without the capability to use jutsu, he flees from the battlefield. Jiraiya also says after summoning Gamabunta that he is about out of chakra. This is not unimpressive though, as Gamabunta requires a ton of chakra in order to summon him to begin with. Jiraiya even remarks that Gamabunta is even too much for himself after Naruto manages to summon him in the ravine. This of course is not true, as Jiraiya was heavily nerfed due to being drugged and was still able to summon him during the three-way deadlock. Gamabunta himself is an extremely powerful foe, especially for part 1. When Jiraiya summons him, he is able to use a fire-style combo attack with Gamabunta's oil called Gamayu Indan or Toad Flames Bomb. This attack generates a genuinely massive fire style that absolutely dwarfs Gamabunta in size. Now, scaling this fire style is sort of difficult for a few reasons, because these rock formations visible on panel don't have a confirmed size, and they don't really look like mountains. Now, these earth formations in the background do actually look pretty similar to how Kishimoto likes to draw mountains, but still a bit unclear. Now, the only object on panel that can be definitively used for scale is Gamabunta himself, who has a confirmed height in both the manga and databooks, but there's still a major issue. Gamabunta's size is actually extremely inconsistent. In the first databook under Gamabunta's entry, it says that Gamabunta is as big as a mountain, which, if you look at the Fireball page, doesn't actually seem that unreasonable if you think those earth formations in the backgrounds are actually mountains, which I believe they are because during the Shukaku fight, we can actually clearly see the mountains once again, and they look about the same. I also have a calc that scales Shukaku size compared to Gaara, and he comes out over 400 meters tall, which is actually mountain size. This, in combination with the fact that Ninetales is said to be able to beat down mountains with his tails on the first episode of Naruto, and Gamabunta is comparable in size to him, really shows the consistency that early on, Gamabunta was actually comparable to mountains in size. To support this even further, during the Shukaku fight, their sheer movement was stated and shown to be changing the terrain itself. Now, the inconsistent part comes in during part 2. In the third databook, Gamabunta is said to be 17 meters tall, and he clearly is not mountain size at all against his fight against Pain. Gamabunta is wildly smaller comparatively to his fight with Shukaku. A good piece of evidence to show their different sizes is by how much Shukaku and Gamabunta tower over the trees. An average oak tree can range between 15 and 21 meters tall, but we know specifically that the trees in Naruto are actually much larger than the trees in real life, if you look at the Forest of Death, for example. So, this is actually downplay, but yeah, Gamabunta is supposedly only 17 meters tall. He shouldn't be any taller than the trees that he's towering over, and he definitely should not be changing the terrain itself with his sheer movement. This to me is a pretty major error on Kishimoto's part, and I'm not for sure why he always draws the Biju in Gamabunta so inconsistently in size, but for the sake of this being part 1 and Gamabunta consistently being portrayed as hundreds of meters tall in part 1, I am going to measure the Fire Style Toad Flame Bomb based on the 400 meter number rather than the 17 meters databook statement, simply because Gamabunta clearly was meant to be that big back then, but was retconned to a smaller size later. The calc I have measures how much oil Jiraiya managed to vaporize in order to create a toad flame that large, and the amount of energy actually comes out to small country level, which is honestly probably the best destruction feat in all of part 1. The next thing I want to talk about in regards to Gamabunta is his fight with the One-Tails. Initially, Gamabunta did not want to fight Shikaku at all because of how powerful he was, which actually scales him above the likes of Manda and Kotsuyu, but after Gamakichi informed the Chief Toad that Shikaku had threatened him, Gamabunta became infuriated and ready to fight. During this fight, Gamabunta manages to evade multiple attacks and even tanks a direct air bullet from him as well. Although Gamabunta does directly admit that he cannot get hit too many more times or else even he would be beaten, with his sword, Gamabunta barely manages to cut through the Sand Spirit's arm, which is highly impressive considering how durable the Biju actually are. This may even make Gamabunta's sword multi-continental due to the Biju being able to withstand their own Biju bombs. All the calcs will be in the description for this, so if you guys want to go check those, make sure to peep the description for any calcs that'll be related to this video. So yeah, because Jiraiya can summon Gamabunta even while weakened severely and has shown relativity to both Tsunade and Orochimaru at multiple points, and because he was selected as a candidate for Hokage, allows for Jiraiya to be considered in the highest echelon of power during part 1. He is easily in the top 5 strongest, only rivaled by the other Sannin and Hiruzen and Itachi. In the second databook on page 109, the Sannin are directly said to be the strongest ninja as well to support this further. Speaking of Itachi, after the three-way deadlock, the final encounter we see Jiraiya have during the events of part 1 is his battle against Itachi and Kasame. This fight is heavily talked and debated about in Naruto due to a few infamous statements from Kasame and Itachi, where Jiraiya is basically stated by Kasame to be in a different league than himself, and he was not so sure he could take him. He does, however, state in this that he believes Itachi may be able to handle him. Itachi then immediately says after this that if he and Jiraiya fought, they would either grievously wound each other or they would kill each other. Kasame then remarks that the titles of the Uchiha clan and the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist pale in comparison to the title of Sannin. So, obviously, if we just take these statements at face value in a vacuum, Jiraiya would be equal or stronger than Itachi and Kasame. I don't think that Jiraiya being stronger than Kasame is by any means outlandish, at least in regards to part 1, because many people make the mistake of comparing part 1 Kasame to part 2 Kasame, despite the fact that there was a multi-year gap when we see Kasame here, and when we see him fight the likes of Guy and Killer Bee later. There's plenty of room for Kasame to have gotten stronger through that time period, so I don't think Jiraiya would suddenly begin scaling to Kasame and Killer Bee or something like that. To support this even further, Kakashi is actually able to match Kasame's water style with the same exact attack. Asuma is also pinned by the tip of Kasame's blade during this fight, but Asuma was shown to be able to react as well as Kakashi. Asuma in the databook is a Jonin said to be near Kakashi's level of strength, and Itachi directly tells Kasame that if he fights Kakashi head-on, even he won't get away scot-free. This basically means Kasame in part 1 is likely around part 1 Kakashi's level of strength as well. Another thing that is worth considering, however, is Itachi is constantly telling Kasame to hold back his power, and is trying to de-escalate the confrontation with Konoha's elite Jonin. Itachi specifically tells Kurenai and Asuma that he does not want to kill them, and then Asuma remarks that this is a very strange comment considering Itachi was willing to commit parricide on his own clan. Itachi also directly tells Kasame that they did not come here to start a war, and he wanted to leave without a fight, but after being forced into it, Itachi still tells Kasame to not overdo it. A scuffle between Kakashi and Itachi ensues, and Kakashi directly says that Itachi had yet to reveal his true power, which once again reinforces that Itachi was holding back. Kakashi soon after this gets put into the Tsukuyomi by Itachi and endures 3 days and 3 nights worth of torture to his psyche, all of which happens in the span of a moment in the real world. It is here that Kakashi says Itachi could have killed him, and he didn't know why he didn't. Once again, showing that Itachi did not want to kill any of the Jonin. Kasame was seemingly frustrated at multiple points from Itachi's unwillingness to engage. Soon after this, in Jiraiya's encounter with Itachi, Jiraiya uses his Toad Belly Jutsu, where he summons a fire-resistant and inescapable mountain toad that swallows everyone into its stomach. Both Jiraiya and the first data book state that nothing can escape from this toad mouth jutsu. Kasame attacks Jiraiya, but Jiraiya summons Gamma, the toad that bodied Ebisu before, and is able to block Kasame's Samehara blade, the same blade that just the tip was capable of pinning Asuma earlier. This means that the Gamma toad that Jiraiya summons is actually relative to Kasame in physicality and above Asuma in strength. Gamma is also stated in the databook to be an extension of Jiraiya's limbs in combat, which is also impressive. Gamma should be around Kakashi's level based on this. After this, Itachi uses his Amaterasu to burn through the mountain toad's belly to escape. Kasame questions Itachi and asks why they're running away considering Itachi's power. Itachi then says that there is no reason to be impatient and he needs to rest due to using his Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, specifically the Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu. Considering Itachi's behavior and the context of Itachi's character, I don't actually think Jiraiya scales to Itachi due to the fact he is actually working as a double agent for Konoha. It makes sense why Itachi was intentionally holding back and not trying to kill any of the Jonin and was constantly trying to retreat. Itachi did not want to harm Konoha's ninja, and it would not make sense for him to harm Jiraiya either. Itachi spent the entirety of his time in Konoha trying to convince Kasame to retreat and run, and also held back in the exchanges such as with Kakashi. He also perpetually kept telling Kasame to hold back his power as well, so to me it seems as though the only reason Itachi said these things about Jiraiya was so he could convince Kasame to run away. Another reason I believe Itachi is stronger than Jiraiya and the statement is a lie from Itachi is that both Sasuke and Orochimaru himself directly state that Itachi was stronger than him. Orochimaru, as we know at this point, is equal to Jiraiya, so again, I think it's more than likely that Itachi is actually stronger than Orochimaru due to having multiple statements from reliable sources such as Orochimaru himself and Sasuke versus Kasame, who is basing his claims off of Jiraiya's title and reputation as a Sannin, and also states later when fleeing that he thinks Itachi could win. And Itachi, who is holding back trying to avoid confrontation, likely lying to convince Kasame. So, yeah, I do think Jiraiya showed some really impressive stuff during this fight, specifically his Toad Belly Jutsu, which he states is even fire resistant, but of course not fire resistant enough to stop the Amaterasu. That brings an end to the part 1 scaling, and now we're going to be entering into part 2, where we find out some key details during the Pain arc for Jiraiya. Jiraiya was spying on the Akatsuki for multiple years now, and has managed to get information regarding their leader, Pain. Jiraiya briefly returns to the Leaf Village and talks to Tsunade about his plan to infiltrate the Rain Village and confront their leader, Pain. Tsunade is deathly afraid of this mission for Jiraiya, but nonetheless allows him to go. Jiraiya does manage to infiltrate the Rain Village and seemingly blends in with all of the citizens and ninja there, but is actually detected by Pain himself using their Rainfall Jutsu. Jiraiya uses his Toad Shop Jutsu, which appears as a normal shop at first glance, but once 2 Rain Ninja enter it, it swallows them whole and sends them to another dimension. It is here that Jiraiya interrogates the 2 shinobi, making threats such as them turning into toads, and even barbarically tortures them with a feather. After Jiraiya gets the info he is looking for, he proceeds forward. Unfortunately for Jiraiya, not long after, he is confronted by Konin, who he bodies in one shot, and the 3 Pats of Pain, which he thinks is Nagato. Jiraiya gives a legendary criticism to Pain's philosophy and begins his battle. Jiraiya instantly summons 2 of the legendary Toad Sages, Ma and Pa, and Jiraiya, unlike Minato and Naruto, summons these toads so they can gather nature energy on his shoulders whilst he battles. It takes a bit of evading from Jiraiya to escape, and he is forced to summon the Ungraceful Toad that begins battling and trading with the Pain Dog summon. Jiraiya also fights the Bird summons and the Chameleon as well, and even shows off this weird barrier jutsu that can apparently sense invisible creatures. Once Ma and Pa finish gathering sage energy, Jiraiya immediately immediately blitzes and bodies a path of pain that rushes him. Interestingly enough, the Sage Mode kick that Jiraiya threw was extremely similar to the kick that Naruto threw at Pain, although that one did get blocked, so it potentially means that Jiraiya is even faster than Sage Mode Naruto. I don't agree with this argument, however, because Pain could have been weakened during that kick, and it was also Tendo that managed to block it, so potentially that's the strongest path of Pain. To be real with you guys though, Jiraiya in this fight, for the most part, kind of just gets his jutsu countered multiple times, partially due to the fact that Pain and Conan already know his weaknesses, such as his oil weakness that they washed away, and this is stated by Jiraiya himself. Jiraiya also directly admits that taking on 3 of them at once was too much for him, and that even in Sage Mode, he would be inevitably killed by them. The most impressive feat that comes from this fight happens when Jiraiya tells Ma and Pa to use Toad's Song, which actually manages to capture 3 of the paths of Pain. This is a pretty insane feat in and of itself, but if you look at the 4th data book statement for this genjutsu, it is said that this jutsu is said to be the most powerful genjutsu and can even warp space, making it an around 8th gate guy level. I'm just joking, that's not serious. But seriously, the fact of the matter is the genjutsu can capture Rinnegan users and is said to be the most powerful genjutsu in the data book, which is just insane. Although Itachi, Tsukiyomi, and the Kodo Matsukami are also stated to be the most powerful as well, so take the statement with a grain of salt. Soon after Jiraiya captures these paths of pain, he proceeds to stab and kill them. Unfortunately for Jiraiya, the Pareda path is soon after sneak attacks him and blows off his arm. After this, the 6 paths of pain join together, all their dead ones revived and ready to eliminate Jiraiya. In a last-ditch effort to stay alive, Jiraiya activates some kind of barrier jutsu and manages to capture yet again another path of pain and kill it. This would be the last time Jiraiya manages to defeat any of the paths of pain, and although still majorly impressive, Pain was clearly shown to be superior throughout the fight, although somewhat relative. Pain finishes Jiraiya off and sends him to the bottom of the ocean, and even makes a final comment about Jiraiya that had he had known their secret, he could have beaten them. A lot of people have many different interpretations about the statement, but considering how intelligent Jiraiya is, it's not at all surprising to me that he would find a way to beat them, especially considering he already managed to kill 4 paths of pain anyway. But at best, I think this means Jiraiya can maybe find a way to trap them all in the Toad Song genjutsu. This is the last bit of scaling for Jiraiya, but in the Boruto anime, there is actually a time travel arc where Jiraiya fights on par with Urashiki, who is an Otsutsuki tier shinobi, stated in a guidebook to be the strongest of their clan. This is pretty insane in and of itself, and the fact that Urashiki was swapping hands with adult Rinnegan Sasuke as well means that Jiraiya basically would be the top tier in Shippuden and would likely be multiversal. This, along with the fact that Hinata actually states that Jiraiya might have been stronger than both Sasuke and Naruto, adds support to this idea as well. I'm just kidding. This arc is actually a pretty big meme in the community. Boy, if you don't... But from what I know about Urashiki, who is actually weakened during this fight, Sasuke was so weakened that the only chakra he had during this fight was the chakra that Part 1 Sakura gave to him. So, yeah, Sasuke and Urashiki had already been battling long before Jiraiya showed up, so he wasn't actually fighting full power Urashiki. But regardless, this entire, scene is just insane, and it makes me think that, they just didn't consider anything that had happened in Shippuden, but regardless, he's weakened, he doesn't actually scale. But yeah, a few other things I forgot to mention is a statement from Tsunade in the anime where she states that if Jiraiya can't beat Pain, then nobody else can, which means that neither she nor Kakashi could have beaten Pain as well, and means that Jiraiya is at least equal to those 2 characters. Jiraiya is also very proficient in sealing jutsu and shows his intellect multiple times throughout the series with this, and was a multiple-time Hokage candidate whose reputation was feared throughout the entirety of the shinobi world. Jiraiya is not the strongest character in Part 2 by any means, but he still deserves your respect. Anyways, guys, that will do it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed. I have a few other video ideas in mind, specifically the Jake Paul underrated video, which will come out next month, and the plans following that should be the multiversal SpongeBob video that's in the works, and my long-awaited and heavily anticipated video about the deadliest Uchiha, Itachi.
Rasengan.